Recording in progress.
That we were speaking about the different meanings in the words Hamarta and Haamirecha. Hamarta, we spoke about first is from the expression of speech, that we make Hashem speak the Asorim Amoris, and then this is through our avoida of learning Torah, of saying words of Torah, the Aseres HaDibros. And then we come down, we draw down the Havaya Haamirecha and Esrus Dol Eila, that's higher than Esrus Dol Asata. Then we spoke about that in Amira, there's also Hamarta, there's also from the word Shevach, praises, that we praised and made Hashem unique and separate from everyone else, and so too Hashem did for us. And also there's the idea of Hamarta and Haamirecha, that we have also that it's the garments, that he was dressed in a garment, and we spoke about that. All of this has to do with the Rosh Hashanah, because when it says Hayom goes on the day of Rosh Hashanah, so we are praising Hashem on Rosh Hashanah. We are making him the only king. We are also making him in the garment of Hashem Geus Lovesh. And also the idea of, obviously, the Amira, the Asorim Amoris, has to do with the creation of the world, that has to do with Asorim Amoris. So then the Maimer went on in Ois Gimel to explain the idea of the speech that has to do with the Asorim Amoris. Each one of these is referring to a different level of godliness. So the level having to do with Amira speech has to do with Asorim Amoris, Aseres HaDibros. That's the way Elikus comes into a Ischalkus, comes into the vision of details. And that's how we got into the whole idea that the ultimate number, the perfect number, is 10, and he went into the idea that there is 10 Sfiris, and the idea of 10 expressions of Shira that David HaMelech said, and that's because everything is made up of 3 dimensions, a length, breadth and depth, and each one of them has a beginning, middle, and end, or a different expression, how the Chokrim use it, etc. So that's why all aspects of perfection is a number 10. So when we started speaking about the words Amira and Dibur of the Asorim Amoris, that's the way Elikus comes into a way of Ischalkus. Now the Rebbe is going to go on further in this idea that the Hischalkus doesn't have to mean the actual Hischalkus, it can even mean the beginning of the Hischalkus is the level of godliness that has to do with the vision and so on. So again, we're holding on the 4th page of the Maimer, line 9, the last word on the line. And this idea that we're saying that in the expression of Hamarta and Haamirecha is referring to Elikus, the way it's on a level of Ischalkus, because it's talking about the Asorim Amoris and the Aseres HaDibros. So it's even when all of them are included in one. Before they actually divide, they already have that Ischalkus in it. And this is included also the matters of details that we mentioned before, the 10 parts that make up every single thing, the way they are still intermingled. So he gives, first of all, an example of the Asorim Amoris, the way they are initially in a place of oneness. Like, for example, in the 10 utterances, amongst the 10 utterances, there's also the Maimer of Bereshis. Because if you really count, it really says only 9 times Vayomer, but K'maimer Azal, Bereshis, Name Maimeru. That Bereshis is also an utterance, it's also a Maimer, even though it doesn't say Vayomer Elikim beforehand. But that Maimer of Bereshis is a general Maimer that includes all the other utterances. Shehu HaMaimer Echad, line 14, She'olav Nemar V'aleu Maimer Echad Yachol Boris. That is the one Maimer, the one utterance, that about that it says that the world could have been created with one. That we learn in Pirkei Avos, that it says, why was the world created with Asorim Amoris? It could have been created with one. So it doesn't mean a different one. It means the first one. The Bereshis, Bara Elikim, would have been the mimer with which the world would have been created. Now the Rebbe elaborates in the brackets, it doesn't just mean it could have or would have been, it actually was. Like it's known, the explanation that when it says the world could have been created, it doesn't mean that it wasn't created with one mimer. There is really one mimer, shehu b'mimer de Bereshis, and that is the utterance of Bereshis bara Elokim. Shal yodai nivru hashamayim v'aretz chol tzvam, that in truth everything was created through that mimer, through Bereshis bara Elokim, the heavens and the earth and everything inside of it. Except that the question was, it could have stayed that way. Why was it necessary for it to afterwards be divided and brought out into the details, etc., etc.? But what do we see from that first mimer of Bereshis? The first mimer of Bereshis includes in it all the other mamoros, Tisha mamoros she'achrov, the 9 mamoros that followed it. V'amimer de Bereshis atzmai kefi shu echad me'asar mamoros. And it includes also the mimer of Bereshis, the way it's part of the Asara Amoris. In other words, there is Bereshis as a klal. There's the mimer Bereshis Bar Elokim Shemaim V'Haaretz, that it's a klal that includes all the mamoris. Then there's the specific, the Bereshis Bar Elokim Shemaim V'Haaretz, how it's 1 out of 10. So in the Bereshis as a klal that includes all the 9, it also includes the Bereshis as it's a prat, 1 out of the 10. Again, the main point that he's trying to say is that when we're talking about the alakus that has to do with the worlds, we're not just talking about it that has to do with the worlds that's in the way of ischalkus, the way it was actually mischalik, but it also includes the level that includes the ischalkus, like Bereshis, including all the other mamoros. Then he gives another example. We said that the Asar mamoros are connected and related to the Asar Sadibris. So the same idea of the klal that includes the details, we find also there. End of line 20. V'chein b'Asar Sadibris, so too in the Asar Sadibris yeshne hadibur d'anoichi, there is the dibur of anoichi Hashem Elokecha. It includes all the Aser Sadibris. You notice? Meaning it includes itself. Like we said by Bereshis. Bereshis, it's not just that it includes the 9, it includes also Bereshis, the way it's a detail. Teisha, so the Rebbe explains this in the parentheses, it includes Teisha Dibris Shel Achrov. The Anoich Hashem Elokecha includes the 9 Dibris following it. V'chein HaDibur the Anoichi Atzmai Kefi Shuech Maser Sadibris, and also the Dibur of Anoichi itself, the way it's one of the Aser Sadibris. So, because it's that klal that includes all of these things. Interestingly enough, I don't remember if this says this anywhere in Chassidus. It just struck me that there's a certain commonality, if you will, that that the Aser Hadibris has in this regard with the Asar Mamoris, that all the Asar Mamoris, we said, it says openly Vayomer, except for the first one. The first one doesn't say Vayomer. All it says Bereshis Bar Elokim. The same thing, all the Aser Hadibris, except for the first one, says it in a way of a command. Do this, don't do that. But when it comes to the first one, it's also not in the way of a command. So it seems to be an interesting point that both the first of the Aser Sadibris and the first of Asar Mamoris are distinct in that regard. Don't know if it has direct connection with what we're talking about over here. Line 24, and just like it is in the Asar Mamoris, and the way it is in the Aser Sadibris, that there is the klal that includes all the details. The Chein B'Asar Sfiris, Yeshna Sfiris HaChochma, so the 10 spheres, they're the sphere of Chochma. In addition to the fact that Chochmah is one of the 10 spheres, it also includes all the spheres. Ella, shegam klal zehu begeder shel schalkas leprotim. Also, this general thing is in a way, in a category of being divided into details. It's something that comes down into details. So, so we see this idea that all these different things symbolized by the first meaning that we spoke about Amira is godliness, the way it has to do with details. Now we're going to speak about the other pirush of Amira, the other pirushim, the meaning of Lavush. Well, the Mailam is that who Inyan Lavush higher in the level of Hamarta as the idea of speech. There is Havai Hamarta Hayom, that's the idea of a garment. That is the transcendent level, the encompassing level. That's beyond becoming enclosed. That's the idea. The garment surrounds us, and it's beyond being divided into details. But we know garments do have details and specifics. This means as follows: although in the garments itself there are differences between the size, the makeup, etc., of the garment that's put on the head versus a garment that's put on the body, versus our shoes, our pants, our shoes, our hat, our shirt, our jacket are totally different garments. Still in all Mekal Mokim, Kalalis Inyan Alavushu B'chinas Makif Chulu. The general idea of garments is the way that it encompasses and doesn't become enclosed and immersed into the details of a person's body. So that is similar to the idea of godliness that's beyond the details. It says in line 7, higher than these two levels is the idea of praise. Hamarta from the word praise, like it was mentioned before from Rashi's explanation in Gemara Brachos. It's a specific, unique, single praise to say there's nothing like you. That's what it means. Chativa achas ba'olam, that we made you one chativa, meaning we made you unique. We distinguished and made distinct Hashem from anything and everything else. That is something that's incomparably higher. It's definitely not something that becomes enclosed in details. It's not even a makif over the details. It's a level that makif, incomparably higher than even the transcendent encompassing level. So this is the point that the Rebbe is trying to bring out. Not just the level of Elikus that comes down in the way of Ischalkus, not just the level of Elikus that comes in the way of a Makiv, but even this level, the most highest level, that there's nothing like you, Nasai de Yisrael Davka, that is accomplished. Yidden accomplished that for Hashem. Like the Chazal say, you made me chativachas. It doesn't say, you proclaimed me, you identified me, you said I am a chativa achas. The Yidden are making this about Hashem. We are making Hashem distinct. The Yisayrim is even more so. Shagam in the Avayamircha Shabola Achre as Avayamarta. Also the idea that Hashem did these things to you and for you. The level of speech, the level of garment, the level of praise. That follows that follows what we do for Hashem. That also in the Havaya Mircha there's also the three pirushim about speech, garment, and singularity in a way of the most highest way. It's specifically something that's to do with Yidden. That Havaya Mircha, only Yidden have this level of the speech, and only Yidden have this level of garment, and only Yidden have this level of uniqueness that we stand out. He says in line 18, Yuvin al piam mavur baruch b'drush yad moram tzoi. This will be understood by what's explained at length in the Mamorim of the Mittler Rebbe. Baruch Yosef b'drush kvoitus adam mar sham nishma saying b'drush kvoitus moircham yad mur, and even greater, at greater length in the Mamorim of the Rebbe Rashav and the Mamorim of my father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe. Be'inyan b'min nimlach mishusayim tzaddik. The Chazal say im hamelach b'mlachta yashvu sham, that with the king during his work, they sat over there. That's what the pasuk says. So the Chazal say, what does that mean? They sat with the king during his work. That means, what was Hashem's work? Hashem's work wasn't the creation of the world. And during the creation of the world, Hashem consulted with the neshamas of tzaddikim. Now, this doesn't mean certain specific individuals, but the Rebbe adds into parentheses, Va'amech kulam tzadikim. All your nations are, your entire nation are entirely tzadikim. So every single yid was in on the process of the creation of the world. Now, if we say that every single yid was in on the process of the creation didn't just begin with the physical world. Creation began with the first revelation that Hashem made to be able to start the spiritual levels necessary to be able to have the physical creation of the world. Therefore, if we say that Hashem consulted the Yidden then, that means the Yidden existed in some way even higher than the highest most levels. So he says in line 23, Shagam b'darga yosef ma'asuf ne'at tzimtzum, even on the most highest level prior to the tzimtzum, she'al l'bertzoy nechulum, that it arose in his will to create a world, the adler rotzna muchlet, until the most deepest type of will of Hashem, that is deeply like buried inside. I'm not going to go into the levels. Chassidus talks about the most deepest type of will of a king, to be a king, is called Ratzna Muchlet, where there's not even like a conscious awareness of it. But whichever level it is, wherever there's already some type of level, even before the Tzimtzum, where Oir was drawn down, where there's some revelation. As long as Atzmus, Hashem's very essence, is already not about himself entirely, so there has to be that the Eden preceded that. Including also such a high level of light and revelation that only will come down by Hashem's own inspiration, that an inspiration down here below cannot touch it, cannot reach it. So even that high up, the most highest level of any type of Amshach, any type of revelation, Hinegam Sham Yeshna Kvar HaMetzias, the Yisrael Shebem Nimlach. Already over there is the existence of the Eden that he consulted, because any type of Hamshacha, any type of Gilui, is for the sake of the world. And since Hashem Kaviyachol needed the Yidden to consult for the creation, so any level of revelation, even the most highest level, the Yidden had to precede that. So the Rebbe is going to ask a very basic question. If there's a level that's beyond any type of revelation, so if so, there's no existence whatsoever over there. So if there's no existence whatsoever over there, how could you say that the Yidden existed there, that he consulted them? How do you do it? Torah Salam Magid. It's known the teaching of the Mizrishim Magid of Pirish Maimer Azal. In the explanation, what does the Chazal mean? Yisrael Olu b'machshava. What's the meaning of that phrase that Yidden arose in Hashem's thought? See, so the Mizrishim Magid explains, Shehu Kimshal Odom. It's analogous to a person. Sheyesh lebein chulu, that he has a child. Shenechkat surashal bein v'machshavas ha'av, that the form, the image, the visage of the child is engraved in his father's thought. So in a similar vein, the Yidden are part of Hashem's very thought. That's what it means, Yisrael Olu b'machshava. But there's one caveat how it's different. When a person's son is engraved in the father's thought, that's only after the son was created, after the son was born. Prior to that, there is no engraving in the father's thought. Line 6, but by Hashem, that engraving is even prior to the creation of the Yidden. And by Hashem Yisbarach, it's shaykh to say this, even before the Yidden were created. So therefore, they are present in Hashem's thought, and He consults with them, figuratively speaking, in other words, that they should help him make the decision whether he's going to emanate the first revelation of anything to start the whole process of the creation. How come? What does it mean? How does he consult them, etc.? How did they participate in this? So he says in line 7, V'chol zehu, l'fi shedavcha yidei Yisrael, nishlemes hakavana, shnesava kadosh baruch hu liyisbarach dir b'tachtoinim. All of this is because that only through the Yidden is fulfilled the intention that Hashem desired to have a home down here below. And something so low that there's nothing lower than it. So he's saying this Avadaika, that in this Hashem specifically desired, that concerning a desire, Chassidus always explains, when it comes to a desire, it's impossible to ask any types of questions. If a taivis can kasha, like the famous expression that's brought down in Chassidus, in Yiddish, that there's no question on a desire. If a person desires something, can't say, does it make sense? Does it not make sense? Can you explain why you desire, how you desire? All that is not a logical approach. The idea of the Yidden's root in Hashem's thought, because of the desire that Hashem had, that this desire is the ultimate, most highest thing, that's the most highest level. That's higher than Makif. So therefore, in the levels that we were talking about over here of Havaya and Mircha, that the lowest level is the speech, the level of Alakus that has to do with the worlds. The second level is the level of garment. Garment is already the level of Makif. But the level how Yidden are beyond everything, the Ein Kamoicha aspect of Yidden, that there's no one like them, is because Yidden are the ones with which Hashem consulted, and because Hashem desired that the Dira should be through them, and therefore they have this unique thing, just like Hashem is Ein Kamoicha, the Chativa Achas Ba'olam, the same thing, Yidden are Chativa Achas Ba'olam. So the Rebbe concludes, this has a unique connection with the avoid of the month of El. That the Rashba wrote that the Hamarta Mircha is similar to the pasuk Doidi li vaniloi. My beloved is to me. That's Hamircha. And Hamarta is I am to Hashem. Avla Marshaka, so the Marsha wrote, like we said at the beginning of the Maimonish, it's similar to the other way, which we know from other places that it's the Rosh Tevis of El. The Marsha, I don't believe, brings down has to do with Rosh Tevis El. Shekein Maschos Havaya Marta Ayoim Shezeu al Derech Anila Doidi. That's why he starts off first what the Yidden do. You made Havaya Hamarta. So that's Ani Ledoidi. That's the beginning. I am to my beloved. And then following that up is Havaya Mircha Shezeu al Derech Doidi Li. So it's the opposite way than what he brought earlier from the Rashba. I say, we can connect all this, what it says at the beginning of the Parsha. It'll be that when you will come to the land that we spoke about, the Torah, the Baal Shem Tov, also in the previous Dvar Malchus Maimer, that when you come to the will, that Hashem, your God, gives you as an inheritance, and you'll inherit it, and you will settle it. The idea of settling it is, again, like the Baal Shem Tov explains, it's about drawing down. This will should not be all over the place, but it should be internalized. You shall take from the first fruits of the land. You shall proclaim and say, we could say, when it says you shall proclaim and say, Yesh lam shloisha pirushim an niskarim leil ba'amarta v'amircha. There's also the three explanations that we said before in hamarta and amircha, from the word speech and from the word garment and from the word uniqueness. And all of this comes down the way that's emphasized concerning the first fruits, that they are the choicest. You're supposed to take from the choicest fruits. This indicates that taking the choicest things indicates drawing down much goodness, both materially and spiritually, out of joy, like it says at the end of the Chumash for Rishon, like it says, you will rejoice in all the good.